Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnmadaya Purnmeva Vasishyate. So today we will start our introduction to Upanishads and the link between the Ved and Upanishad. Now we discussed that Ved provides the foundation for the further detailed explanation which has been given in Upanishads. And that is why Upanishads are called Vedant. Vedant means not the end of Ved, but the culmination of Vedic knowledge. It is where the knowledge is given in its highest form. And that is why Upanishads are considered to be the discovery of the finest human mind. And this has been acknowledged by many Western thinkers that there is no spiritual thought or even scientific thought which is deeper and more profound than what is contained in our Upanishads. As per my knowledge, there are a total of 108 Upanishads. I have the complete set with me. Fortunately, I was able to procure it some time back. But out of those 108, 11 Upanishads are considered very, very important. And why it is so? It is because Sankaracharya gave his bhashya or his commentary on these 11 Upanishads. So people feel that since he chose these 11 Upanishads for his commentary, they are the most important ones. But even other Upanishads are equally important. It is not that they do not contain that depth. In fact, I have read some of the other Upanishads as well. They are equally deep in terms of knowledge. Now, let us talk about the bridge between the Ved and Upanishad. You see, the Ved starts with what we call prayer to various deities, that is, the natural powers like Indra, Varun, Agni. So it starts with that. So it starts with the natural forces which regulate our life and which play a significant role in our life. And then slowly, slowly, it talks about yagna, what human beings should do to pray to those natural forces and to dedicate themselves to those forces. They talk about yagna. There are certain rituals which have been prescribed by the way. There are rituals also regarding the birth and death and marriages and all that which are prescribed. Vedas also prescribe, for example, Ayurveda is also called Upved of Veda. There are Vedas which are called Gandharv Ved, which are basically on the form of dances and music and a variety of instructions regarding the musical art and science. Similarly, there are Vedas in other fields as well. So the Vedic knowledge is actually a compound knowledge covering all activities of human being. Even Dhanurved is also there. The art of archery and also the art of fight, or you know how to defend oneself. So all these arts have also been included in the Vedas. So some people actually called Veda as a encyclopedia of humanity. We were talking about Osho just now. Even Osho calls Vedas as encyclopedia of humanity because it briefly covers all those issues which concern us. And then it also talks about the fundamental scientific and spiritual knowledge, which we discussed in terms of Purush Sukta and some of the other writings. Now we have seen the depth of Vedic writings, but that depth has been further elaborated in Upanishads. And that is why Upanishads actually shifted the basis from rituals to knowledge. Now, that is very important. The Vedas were to some extent also described karma kand, that what we should do. It's called pravarti in Sanskrit, that what activities we should perform. Like yagna was part of that, rituals was part of that. So the karma kand was described as well. But when it comes to Upanishad, they actually relegate the karma kand to a lower level and they talk about the knowledge, the gyan, the real gyan about this universe, about the self, and how one should conduct oneself. So that is the shift from Vedic knowledge to Upanishadic knowledge in that sense. Though the Upanishad is part of Veda, but when it graduated from Brahmanas and Aranyakyas and then to Upanishad, that shift happened. And the knowledge, or particularly the gyan, because knowledge word may not imply gyan. Gyan is the one which is based on the Sanskrit root ge. Ge means which becomes part of you. So the gyan is which you have experienced and you have naturalized in yourself. So that is gyan. So the Upanishad actually emphasize on the knowledge part much more than the ritual part, and that is why uh, the karma kand have been relegated substantially in Upanishads. Now the word Upanishad has three Sanskrit roots. Upnishad. Basically, its meaning is to sit near. To sit near, that is the disciple and the guru. They sit close to each other. It is not in the physical sense that they sit close to each other. It is in the spiritual sense. It is from heart to heart that they become very close to each other. Their heart are, beating together. Like when do you share your, secrets of your life? With whom? You share secrets of your life with those people whom you trust fully, and those people who are your friends, whom you have full faith, and whom you think they will not misuse that knowledge. So, the trust is the fundamental requirement of Upanishad. And the trust was developed between the teacher and the disciple, the guru and shishya. And that is where this knowledge was imparted to those people who have full faith in their guru and who are ready to accept what guru is saying. Now, at that age when shishya is very young, he may not be able to understand certain things, which he will do once he grow up. And therefore, at that stage, it is important that he accepts what Guru says. Now, that acceptance becomes extremely important. So, in our personal life also, we share our secrets only with those who are ready to accept, who are considered close, with whom you can, talk very closely. So, that is the meaning of Upanishad, that you become very close. The teacher and the shishya relationship is very very what you call uh, profound, and there is a trust between the two, and that is how this word Upanishad came into existence. That this knowledge was not shared with Tom, Dick, and Harry. It was shared only with those people who had full faith in their guru and who were ready to accept what he was saying. And there was a relationship of trust between the two. So the knowledge could not be misused. That was the reason. Now, this is the foundation of Upanishad. And as I mentioned just now, the order, Rit was the natural order of what we call Prakriti. Rit basically means the law governing the natural forces. For example, the movement of the sun. Sun rises and then sets, and its angle changes towards Earth. So we have Uttarayan and we have Dakshinayan. We have a variety of seasons, depending on the the what you call angle of the sun to the Earth. So that is part of Rith. Similarly, moon. Moon has its phases, the full moon and the no moon day, and then it's waxing and waning of moon, all that phases, and it follows that. So there's a system of moon appearing and disappearing, and that is called Rith as well. Similarly, you have seen the seasons that come, the winds that come. There's a particular season when the rain takes place. There's a particular season when there is a heat, when there is a cold, when the Basant Ritu or the spring comes, when the regeneration of life happens. So all those are natural orders which are followed by the natural forces. For example, if the Agni does not give heat and fire, what is the meaning of Agni? It has no meaning at all. So this is what we call dharma of the natural forces. In Vedic language, it is called dharma. अग्नि का धर्म है कि वो जलेगी और प्रकाश देगी, हीट देगी. पानी का धर्म है कि वो प्यास बुझाएगा और वो नीचे की तरफ बहेगा. Similarly, the sun has its own dharma and moon has its own dharma. This is moon's dharma is to provide all the nourishment to the vegetation which is there on the earth. So all the vegetation, the nourishment, for example, the taste of gavava or taste of orange, all those tastes come from the moon. So that is called the dharma of a particular natural force. And this all this put together was called Rith. Rith is the natural order in which the natural forces move. From that Rith, the more emphasis was given because Rith was taken as given, and more emphasis was given on Dharma in Upanishads. Dharma means the individual. Of course, that is the dharma of natural forces, but there is a dharma of the human being, that how he should conduct himself. The what is right, what is wrong, what is moral, what is immoral, what is ethical, what is not ethical, what he should do in a given circumstances, what is the impact of this and kal, that is the place and the time, how they impact on your dharma. So the concept of dharma was developed in a very profound way in Upanishads. So Rith comes primarily from Vedic, I mean the first part of the Vedas, and the last part of the Vedas give more emphasis on dharma. So that is why the knowledge is associated with dharma. The more you know, the more dharmic you can become, the more spiritual you can become. So this is first thing. The second was the yajna and karmkand were emphasized in the first part of the Vedas. Now that converted into Gyan as we discussed, that was converted to Gyan. Rituals and Yajna became secondary and the Gyan became primary in when it comes to Upanishads. Then the concept of Pap and Punya is there in the first part of the Vedas. But in the later part of the Vedas, it is the Niskam Karma, or the karma without having the pride of doer. So Niskam karma became very important. And that is what Bhagavad Gita also says. Bhagavad Gita very clearly says that once you acquire adequate knowledge, then the Vedas become insignificant and Niskam karma becomes more important. That is, in fact, the importance of Niskam karma has been deeply emphasized in Bhagavad Gita. I think there's nowhere else which has been emphasized in so detail. Now, tap means basically you do a penance, you suffer physically for the sake of the supreme to acquire certain maybe some knowledge. Like now you watch Kumbh Mela will be in starting from 13th. There are already a lot of videos coming out. Now you will find a lot of saints there who undergo variety of sufferings, bodily sufferings. Some people stand on one leg, some people don't sleep at all. Some people stand walking all the time, they never sit down. There are variety of things they do. Uh, some people, that many of them don't wear any clothes and they are able to manage in a very cold, climate as well. So all those are called tap. When you make your body suffer for the sake of an objective, and the objective is spiritual, that you become one with the supreme. Now that concept of austerity or tap or tapasya was overtaken in Upanishads with what you call self-discipline. Self-discipline became very, very important. And that is why in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna said that, uh, yatha yogya khana, yatha yogya sona, yatha yogya karm karna is important. So the Lord Krishna is not talking about tap. In fact, in the later part of Bhagavad Gita, he clearly says that niskam karma and abstaining the pride of doership is more important than tap. So that is the Upanishadic part. So the tap was emphasized in the earlier part of the Vedas. When the Vedic science graduated to Upanishads, it became self-discipline, which became important. So this is the what you call graduation. Graduation from Rit to Dharma, from Yajna and rituals to Gyan and knowledge, from Pap Punya to Niskam Karm, and from Tap and austerity to self-discipline. That graduation happened from the earlier part of Veda to the last part of Veda, which is called Upanishad. Now, Upanishad is also another thing, a word we all know, neti neti, not this, not that. Now, it is to some extent very simplified, translation of neti neti. Neti neti basically means this is not enough, that is not enough. So you have to continue your inquiry further to gain knowledge, further knowledge. So the concept of further inquiry was introduced in Upanishads, that you have to challenge things, inquire more and more deeply, and then acquire the foundational knowledge, the profound knowledge of the subject. So this concept of neti neti was introduced in Upanishads, that this is not enough, that is not enough, let's do more work. There's no blind faith concept there. The blind faith concept, like in Semitic religions, they believe that this is the word of the Lord and we should not deviate from there. That is the foundation of what you call Bible and Quran and the Old Bible, which is Old Testament for the Jews. Now, that concept is not there in Upanishads. In Upanishads, the concept is to continue inquiry and then to discover the truth yourself. And that is why the Bhagavad Gita lasted for 700 verses for so many hours in the middle of the battlefield. Because Lord Krishna did not want to impose anything. He could have ordered Arjun that, yes, this is what you need to do. But he says, no, you must understand the whole thing and then you agree to it yourself. And that is why the Bhagavad Gita continued. So the concept of inquiry was introduced in Upanishads. And that is what Neti Neti concept came into being, that you continue to challenge things and go profoundly deeper into knowledge. So this was another thing. The other very important thing in Upanishad, which required faith, which required total dedication to the gurus, is the the what you call harmony of the opposites. In the real world, we see everything as two sides, like two sides of a coin. You have a beginning, you have an end. You have the sunrise and you have the sunset. You have the pain and then you have the pleasure. You have love and you have hatred. There are dualities. The world is made of dualities. That is why the Dvait is a real concept in the life. So in the young age, we all believe in dualities. That how one thing can be good and bad at the same time. That is not acceptable to the young mind. Young mind cannot accept that dualities can be one. They are the the combination or the expression of the same thought. That is very difficult for them to accept. They cannot accept that the life and death are the same thing. But when you grow older, then you start realizing that the death is nothing but part of the continuity of life. So the dualities cannot be accepted by young mind. And that is why this concept that you should have faith in the teacher came into being. And that is the foundation to tell the shishya, to tell the disciple that these dualities are nothing but a mere appearance. They are not real. The reality is beyond these dualities, to rise beyond these dualities. And then that is what in Bhagavad Gita they call it sambhav. Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna very clearly says that the sambhav is the culmination of yoga. Yogi and sambhav are similar together. So the sambhav means that you have equanimity between pain and pleasure, between beginning and end, between birth and death. You have uh, a middle point which gives you harmony and balance. And that is why that balance became extremely important in Upanishads, which was also emphasized in Bhagavad Gita. So the dualities were overcome. And that knowledge cannot be passed without faith to the younger generation. That is why this Guru Shishya Parampara established that you should have total dedication and total commitment to the Guru so that he can give you the true knowledge. And then when the Shishya becomes mature, he grows in life, then he realizes what the teacher told him in the childhood was absolutely correct. So this was another reason uh, to the changes which happened from uh, earlier Vedic writings to the latest Vedic writing, which is the Upanishad. Now, there is one more thing which we must understand. There is a language of paradox. We have talked about this very briefly in the past, but Upanishads are all in the language of paradox. It is because of the duality. Limitations. You cannot equate pleasure and pain in the language. There are two different words, and they are based on the meaning of these two is understood on the basis of the other one. You understand the pain when you understand the meaning of pleasure. You understand the meaning of pleasure when you understand the meaning of pain. So when you explain, light, then you have to talk about darkness. That absence of darkness is light. Now you cannot explain light on its own. Similarly, you cannot explain darkness on its own. You have to say lack of light is darkness. So that explanation is linked in language. The linguistic limitations compel us to use this, language of paradox, or to use these two extremes to explain things. But in Upanishad, they have been using this language of paradox very clearly and very regularly. Like they will say, the Supreme Lord or the Brahman is smallest of the small and the biggest of the biggest. Now a young mind will challenge, how can be smallest of the small can be biggest of the biggest? But when we grow, when our knowledge grow, when our experience grow, we realize that this is possible. And this is what is the actually the truth. So when we see east on the one side and the west on the other side, how do we say they can be, part of the same one unity? But it is so, because everything is circular in this universe. So practically there is no east and no west, they are all circular. Everything is circular. And that is why this world in Sanskrit is called sansar, because everything is in circular form. In fact, the 360-degree angle is which applies everywhere, where there's something is up today and then it goes down next day, and then something is on the east today and then it goes down to the west. So it keeps circulating. So that knowledge uh, uh, can be explained only in language of paradox. And that is why Upanishads use this language. Now, for example, they say they want to describe the Supreme. For example, they will use this word that he has no attributes, but all the attributes come from there. वो निर्गुण है लेकिन सारे गुण वहां से आते हैं. Now, how can you explain that? It is not easy to explain that, but this is the truth. Now, that is why Upanishadic knowledge has those paradoxes which appear paradoxes to us when we don't have enough knowledge. When we have enough knowledge, when we have graduated to the higher level of knowledge, then those paradoxes disappear and we realize that that is the truth. So that is where the Upanishads use this language. Now, actually, the other point here is that by transgressing these limits, when you transgress the limit of pleasure, the pain automatically follows. For example, you are in a party and you are enjoying. How long can you enjoy? If you are staying in that party for hours and days together, you will become miserable. So the misery follows automatically. It's not that. Now, if somebody is in pain in all the time, after a while he gets used to the pain and he starts enjoying it. So if the pleasure follows after that. So when you transgress the limit of pain or pleasure or one extreme to the another, then you automatically realize that they are linked, they are together. And we should accept both in the real world. We should accept the pleasure and the pain, but we should keep our equanimity between the two. That is what we learn from Upanishad slowly, slowly. So this was another very important factor, the language of paradox, which actually made it necessary that the Shishya who is learning from the Guru must accept these paradoxes in the beginning, because in a young age you do not accept these things easily. So the acceptance is important. So this is why the word Upanishad contains that you should be very close to each other. The Guru and Shishya should be next to each other to understand them. Now, the right and wrong, ethical and not ethical, they are also covered by the same definition. For example, what is right today could be wrong tomorrow. I remember there was a time when in India, taking liquor was considered very wrong. People used to, sometimes people used to drink but hide themselves and then drink. Now, today that has become a concept. Now, what is right, what is wrong, you don't know. What is right today is right, or what was right earlier, that was right. In some countries, uh, people are very social, like in India. In some countries, they are not social at all. You go to the West, they have very limited social contact. Now, what is right, what is wrong, we don't know. Whether they are right or whether we are right. Some people tell the truth openly and don't mind if others become, angry against them. Some people put that in a wrapper and do the sugar coating and tell the same thing in different way. Now, what is wrong, what is right, we don't know. Who is wrong, who is right. So the wrong and right defined, the definition of wrong and right also changes. It changes based on the time, it changes based on the place. Now, some of the concepts which were valid, say, 20 years ago, have become totally invalidated today. And some of the concepts which are today may become invalidated tomorrow. So this also keeps changing with time. It also keeps changing with place. What is right in India may not be right in US. What is right in, for example, in China may not be right in India. So all these right and wrong are subject to what we call des and kal. So this and call concept comes into play, which has acquired a very profound meaning in Upanishads. So this is also, we have to understand how Upanishads have done. Then there is a question of, we talked briefly about uh, embodied consciousness and bodiless consciousness. Now bodiless consciousness is pervasive, all pervasive everywhere. It is pervading the entire universe. That is what we say, Isa Vashyamidam Sarvam. That consciousness pervades everything everywhere. Like Akash pervades everything. It's everywhere. So that is what bodiless consciousness. Then embodied consciousness, which is the Jivatma, where the body has been created around the consciousness, or consciousness has acquired a body, and then that consciousness is limited to that body. And that is why that is called Jivatma. That is what we also call the consciousness has been restricted by body and mind, uh, from a universal one to a restricted one. It is confined to that, body and mind, not beyond that. So that comes into what we call roop and name. Now, roop and name, form and name, is the one which comes into embodied consciousness. There is no roop and name to the bodiless consciousness. In embodied consciousness, there is roop and there is name. If I am called Gauri Shankar, because this body has given me this, you identify with Gauri Shankar with my name and face. If the day I die and my consciousness merges with the universal consciousness, there is no Gauri Shankar anymore. So there is no roop, no name. Roop and name are connected. When you think about an elephant, it's immediately an image of elephant comes to your mind. And when you think about Lalit Maheshwari, then immediately the face of Lalit Maheshwari comes to your mind. So all that is linked. Roop and name is linked. That roop and name is associated with embodied consciousness, and that restricts the universal consciousness to a limited field. And that is what we have to understood very properly. So here these three, four things which come into play very significantly in Upanishad. We discuss them one by one, but just to regain the concept of Rit, and then the concept of dharma in Upanishads, yajna and karmkand to gyan, then pap and punya to niskam karma yoga, from austerity and tap to anusasan, and then a concept of inquiry that we have to find the perfect knowledge. Therefore, neti neti, not this, not that. We have to make further inquiries to find out the truth. That became very important. Then the opposites, which are the dualities in the world, to transcend those dualities, and the description of those dualities in what we call the language of paradox. And then uh, understanding the wheel, the circular nature of everything in this universe, then the dualities will disappear. The dualities are in the linear process. In the circular process, there is no duality. They keep changing one after another. And what is up today goes down tomorrow. What is left today goes to the right tomorrow. So this keeps circulating all the time. And that is why this whole world has been called sansar in Sanskrit language. Then the last part is right and wrong, and the concept of embodied consciousness, all that comes into play, and they become the foundational term in Upanishads. So Upanishad graduates to these things from the initial knowledge, which was confined more to the natural forces, worshipping those forces, and then doing yajna and karmkand, and then rituals concerning birth and marriage and death and all those things. And then of course associated with them was ayurvedic knowledge, the gandharv knowledge, that is the dance and musical knowledge, and then dhanurvidya, that is all the self-defense activities. All that knowledge then got diverted to the knowledge of what we call the deep knowledge of the universe, and that is called Gyan in Upanishad. So this is what the gradual transformation of the initial phase of Vedas turned into the final Upanishad, which is called Vedant, that is called culmination of knowledge. And that knowledge can be transferred by the guru to the shishya only when they have heart to heart relationship. There's a total trust between them, there is a closeness between them, like you share your secrets of your life with your spouse because there's a closeness. You don't share with those secrets with anybody else. Similarly, the gurus wanted to make sure that these kind of secrets, which are not commonly understood by the young people, are shared only with those who have total faith and total understanding. And that is how the whole concept moved further. So this is how I thought I will cover this introduction of Upanishads today before we start Isavasya next week. So next Saturday we will start with Isavasya Upanishad, and today we have understood, we have tried to understand the basics of Upanishadic knowledge, which has been described by many Western philosophers as the profound knowledge by the finest mind ever on this earth. Thank you.